Your deepest desires aren't random. They're messages from the forgotten corners of your soul. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Desire isn't just attraction, it's revelation. Every time you crave, it's your soul speaking. Not asking for pleasure, but for awareness. Because what you want most is often what you've lost within yourself. Desire doesn't lie, it points you home. The hidden language of desire. There's a truth most people never face. Your desire isn't chaos, it's communication. Every time you crave someone, it's not just about them. It's about what they represent. The emotion, the energy, the missing piece of yourself that you've buried beneath years of control, fear, and conditioning. We're taught to see desire as temptation, but in reality, it's revelation. It's the voice of the unconscious speaking in the only language it knows, feeling. When your body reacts before your mind can explain, that's not weakness. That's truth trying to reach you. Desire points toward what's been suppressed. It reveals your shadow, the parts of you your mind rejects, but your body remembers. The parts you've denied, moralized, or labeled as wrong. And that's why attraction often feels dangerous, because it threatens the identity you've built to survive. You're not just drawn to people who please you, you're drawn to those who wake you. You crave what unsettles you because your unconscious doesn't seek comfort. It seeks completion. It wants you to become whole again. Every person who stirs something deep within you is a messenger carrying the qualities, emotions, or wounds you've forgotten how to face. That's why the same type of person can appear in your life again and again, wearing different faces but triggering the same emotions. It's not bad luck, it's repetition with a purpose. Your psyche keeps sending you mirrors until you finally recognize yourself in them. Sometimes the attraction feels magnetic, almost irrational. You can't explain why you're drawn to them, only that something in their presence makes you feel more alive. That's not fantasy, that's your soul remembering what it once lost. But the danger lies in mistaking the mirror for the meaning. When you chase the person instead of the message, you get trapped in cycles of desire and disappointment. Because no one can complete you, they can only reflect the parts you've abandoned. Desire, in its purest form, isn't about possession, it's about recognition. It's your inner world reaching out through the outer world, asking to be seen. So the next time you feel that pull, that strange mix of fear and fascination, don't just ask, why them? Ask, what are they showing me about myself? Because the unconscious doesn't speak in words, it speaks in symbols. And desire is its most intimate form of truth-telling. The Psychology of Attraction, approximately 2,500 characters. Every desire you can't explain, every pattern that keeps repeating, every attraction that feels irrational, none of it is coincidence. It's communication. A coded message from your psyche trying to show you what still needs to be healed, understood, or integrated. Attraction isn't random, it's precise. It points directly toward the places within you that are unfinished. The people you're drawn to, the types you keep meeting, even the fantasies that haunt you, they're all mirrors reflecting your inner world. The aggressive often crave surrender because control has become their armor. The wounded crave power because once they felt helpless. The lonely crave warmth because they've lived too long in emotional winter. The unloved crave permission to exist because they were taught love must be earned. Your desires are the psyche's poetry, raw, symbolic, and deeply revealing. They tell you everything about who you are, what you've been through, and what you secretly long to feel again. But most people misinterpret them. They see desire as weakness or sin, something to repress or overcome. Yet Carl Jung believed that repression is what keeps you divided, because whatever you push down doesn't disappear. It transforms into shadow. It hides behind your choices, your relationships, your impulses. That's why you may find yourself drawn to people who mirror your pain, not your peace. You repeat emotional patterns not because you enjoy suffering, but because your psyche is desperate to complete the story, to rewrite what went wrong, to reclaim what was lost. Desire, then, isn't corruption, it's curriculum. Every longing you feel is a psychological signal saying, here's what's missing. Here's what your heart still doesn't trust. And fantasies, they don't lie. They reveal truths you're not ready to admit out loud. They strip away the masks and show what you secretly wish life could give you. Safety, power, surrender, freedom, connection. So instead of judging your attractions, start decoding them. Ask, what part of me does this person awaken? What emotion am I trying to feel through them? What am I still trying to prove? Shadow work. Through desire. Carl Jung believed that sexual energy isn't just physical, it's psychic. It's the life force that fuels creativity, art, passion, and transformation. It's the same raw power that builds civilizations, writes poetry, starts revolutions, and drives the soul to evolve. But this energy is neutral. What makes it divine or destructive depends on how you handle it. Repression makes it toxic. Awareness makes it sacred. When you repress desire, you don't become pure. You become divided. You silence a voice that was meant to guide you. And in that silence, your soul begins to fracture. The energy you try to bury doesn't vanish. It leaks into your thoughts, your habits, your dreams. It becomes anxiety, guilt, jealousy, or obsession. Repression turns passion into poison. That's why Jung warned, never moralize desire too quickly. Don't call it sinful. Study it. Because your desires are not random urges, they're messages, encoded signals from the unconscious, guiding you toward the parts of yourself you've exiled. Every attraction, every craving, every fantasy is a form of communication. It whispers, here's what you've been hiding. Here's what you fear admitting. Here's what still needs to be integrated. This is the essence of shadow work, the process of meeting your denied self with awareness instead of judgment. Your shadow isn't evil, it's simply unacknowledged energy, your wildness, your tenderness, your power, your vulnerability. Everything you suppress eventually finds a way to speak, and desire is its loudest language. Think of it this way. If you constantly crave control, perhaps there's a part of you terrified of chaos. If you seek chaos, maybe structure once suffocated you. If you long to be desired, perhaps you've forgotten your own worth. The pattern always points to the wound. When you stop condemning your desires and start listening to them, they become sacred teachers. They reveal where you're still divided, where your heart still hides behind fear. And once you bring awareness to those hidden corners, something shifts. Desire transforms. It stops ruling you and starts serving you. What once felt like temptation becomes direction. What once felt like chaos becomes clarity. That's the gift of shadow work through desire. It doesn't just change what you want, it changes why you want it. The mirror of the soul. You're never just chasing another person. You're chasing what your unconscious sees in them. Every attraction is a reflection, every infatuation a mirror. What pulls you towards someone isn't simply their beauty, their voice, or their charm. It's the echo of your own forgotten energy calling you back to wholeness. They awaken what you've disowned, your wildness, your vulnerability, your tenderness, your power. That's why love feels divine in the beginning. It's not just chemistry, it's reunion. It's your lost self returning home through the face of another. Jung called this projection, the act of unconsciously placing parts of your inner world onto someone else. You meet a person and suddenly they carry your light, your mystery, your fire, your freedom. You think they complete you, but in truth, they reflect you. That's why passion feels holy, because it is. For a moment, you glimpse the part of your soul you forgot existed. You feel alive again, seen again, whole again. But when the projection fades, reality arrives. The illusion dissolves, and you're left with the truth. No one can complete you. They can only reveal what's incomplete. This is where most people get lost, mistaking reflection for reality. They cling to the person instead of listening to the lesson. They chase the mirror instead of the message. But if you're conscious, something incredible happens. When the infatuation fades, you don't collapse. You awaken. You begin to see that love isn't about finding your other half. It's about remembering you were never half to begin with. When you stop using desire as distraction, it becomes revelation. It stops controlling you and starts guiding you. Every time you feel drawn to someone, pause and ask, what are they showing me about myself? What energy in me are they awakening? Because people don't just enter your life, your unconscious summons them. They arrive carrying mirrors, not answers. And once you've learned what they came to teach, you no longer need to hold on to them to feel whole. From compulsion, to consciousness. If you crave control, it's because somewhere inside you fear chaos. If you crave chaos, it's because too much control has numbed your spirit. If you crave being wanted, it's because you've forgotten that you're already worthy. Every desire has an opposite, a wound hiding beneath it, and your body, wiser than your mind, speaks through these cravings. It expresses what your thoughts suppress. That's why Jung said the body carries the truths the mind refuses to hear. Desire is not the problem. Denial is. Jung warned that shame only deepens repression. When you moralize or condemn your desires, you don't erase them, you bury them alive. And anything buried in the psyche grows roots. It resurfaces through anxiety, jealousy, obsession, or self-destruction. You can't destroy desire, you can only illuminate it. Because what's brought into awareness transforms. Once you understand your desire, it stops being compulsion and becomes consciousness. The same energy that once controlled you begins to serve you. It turns into creativity, imagination, art, and wisdom. This is what Jung called sublimation, the alchemical process of turning raw instinct into higher expression. It's how sexual energy, when met with awareness, becomes sacred instead of sinful, healing instead of harmful. The goal isn't to escape desire, it's to evolve it, to move from reaction to reflection, from compulsion to creation. When you repress sexual energy, it collapses your inner world. But when you allow it to move consciously, through writing, art, movement, or love, it expands your soul. You begin to realize that this energy was never meant only for pleasure, but for power. Not power over others, but power over self. Sexual energy becomes sacred when it's conscious, when you see it not as lust to be feared, but as life to be understood. It becomes destructive only when denied, because denial turns the divine into distortion. So the next time you feel the pull of desire, don't ask, "How do I get rid of this?" Ask instead, "What can this become if I stay aware?" The return to wholeness. Because in the end, desire was never just about lust, it was about life, about aliveness, about the electric pulse of existence trying to move through you. Desire is the universe whispering, "Feel me." It's life itself knocking on the door of your awareness, asking to be experienced fully, not just physically, but spiritually. When you feel drawn to someone, don't just ask, "Why them?" Ask instead, "What is my soul trying to remember through them?" Because every person you're drawn to awakens a forgotten memory of passion, freedom, worthiness, or love. They remind you of something you once were, or something you're still becoming. Every attraction is a mirror, every craving a message, every desire a doorway, leading not outward, but inward. When you chase the object of desire, you move away from yourself. But when you listen to it, when you study it, when you let it reveal rather than consume, it becomes a path back to your wholeness. That's the great paradox. The more consciously you feel desire, the less it controls you. You stop being a prisoner of your impulses and start becoming the interpreter of your own soul. In that awareness, love changes form. It's no longer about possession, it's about perception. You begin to see the divine reflected in others, not as something to own, but as something to awaken within yourself. This is the return Jung spoke of, the reunion of opposites, the integration of the shadow and the self. The point where masculine and feminine within you stop fighting and start dancing. Where you realize that every longing was just life trying to reunite you with what you had forgotten you already are. Because true fulfillment doesn't come from being desired, it comes from being whole. It's when you no longer need someone to mirror your worth, because you can finally see it in yourself. When you learn to listen instead of chase, to feel instead of flee, you stop losing yourself in others and start finding yourself through them. That's when desire becomes devotion. That's when love becomes liberation. And that's when you finally understand. The journey was never about them. It was always about you, remembering your own light. Sacred desire, expanded to approximately 2,500 characters. True attraction isn't two people escaping loneliness. It's two souls that have already made peace with their own solitude. It's not a collision born of emptiness, but a meeting born of wholeness. That is the essence of what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming undivided within yourself. to integrate the parts you once rejected, to bring the shadow into the light until nothing inside you is at war anymore. When your shadow no longer rules you, your desire changes its nature. It becomes calm, clean, and conscious. You no longer crave from lack, you connect from abundance. You no longer chase to feel worthy, you give because you already are. Desire, purified through awareness, transforms from hunger into harmony. It's no longer an instinct that drags you, it's a current that carries you. It stops being about possession, validation, or control, and becomes an expression of presence, of truth, of love that doesn't need to take to feel alive. This is sacred desire, not fire that burns, but light that warms, not hunger, but understanding, not ownership, but openness. In sacred desire, you no longer use another person to fill your void. You meet them as another universe, whole, mysterious, radiant, and your connection becomes a celebration, not a transaction. You give not to get, but because something within you overflows. You realize that love is not about merging, but about mirroring wholeness. It's when two complete beings choose to share their completeness, freely, without demand, without fear. And in that sharing, intimacy becomes something higher than pleasure. It becomes prayer, the body as temple, the heart as altar, the act as offering. This is the sacred union the mystics spoke of, where the human and the divine meet inside the same breath, where the masculine and feminine energies within and between you no longer compete, but create, where love stops being a search and becomes a state of being. Because in the end, sacred desire isn't about who you want, it's about what in you awakens when you love consciously. It's the point where passion meets peace and fire becomes light. Outro. Maybe your desire wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was your soul trying to wake you up. So instead of judging what turns you on, ask what it's trying to teach you. Because inside every craving lies a truth, a part of you still waiting to come home. Take a breath. You're not lost. You're learning. You're not broken. You're becoming. Like, comment, and subscribe. Not for numbers, but for awareness. And tell me in the comments,